Brand.
Actor in Russell.
Controversial conspiracy theorist.
Trying to bring real journalism to the American people. We've got important things to talk to you about, you awakening wonders. We can't just sit around, can we, waiting for authoritarians to take over? What are you more worried about? Let me know whether you're watching me on Rumble or Rumble Premium right now, or YouTube or on X. Are you worried about this global amalgam that may be emerging right out of China? There's Putin, there's Kim Jong, I've never memorised which one's the older one, and, you know, he's out of the South Park movie. Are you more worried about geopolitical threats, or are you more worried about your own state's authoritarian creep towards absolute control? Let me know. We're looking at a lot of things. Of course, we're looking at the sort of mighty march of Putin, Kim, and Xi. But we're also going to cover a whole lot of things, not least when we look at Trump's penis.
Mr. President, you have so many great ideas. Your leadership is truly beyond anything we have ever had in this country. And you do not have a small penis.
Actually, that thing yesterday, Jake, where they all went on Labour Day how much they loved him, it was a little bit like that. Yeah. You know, the sort of cabinet moment, I thought, a little bit like that. But maybe, even if you are one of those people that detests MAGA and Trump, perhaps you would rather have an empowered and engorged, mighty phallic America, rather than what appears to be happening now, a display of extraordinary might from those powers that are extraneous. Let's have a look. Let's have a look at this meeting, which seems like, you know, many of you will have noted that the military parade that Trump held in the United States of America, some people said that it was troubling, and check this. China unveils plans for a new world order, and I want to see the what I heard was a sort of a very powerful military display. Have you seen this yet? Let's have a look.
An extraordinary military display by China to commemorate the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II has become a direct challenge to America's global position. The US president reacting angrily to President Xi Jinping's
a weird way to celebrate the end of World War II. And to celebrate the end of World War II, a provocative display of military power.
And Xi Jinping's parade, as politicians here in Australia condemn the attendance of former Victorian Premier Dan Andrews.
The world's never seen anything like it. The biggest ever show of military might. Its chief conductor, Xi Jinping, parading China's immense power.
That wasn't real, that bit at the beginning. That looked like AI. He didn't look real when he was standing in front of that thing, and it is immense military power.
Immense power on land, sea and air. Choreographed, precise, immense, even menacing.
Whoa, look at that, they can move their heads. It's like when they did the Olympics and they did that drumming. Do you remember that when they had the Olympics? Was it 2012 when China had the Olympics? Oh man, they banged them drums, baby. And now look at this, look, they can pivot their heads in unison in their cool outfits.
Even menacing. The Chinese president assembling dictators and despots as support acts, flanked by Russian President Vladimir Putin and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un in a direct message to the West about an alternative world order.
Is it a direct message or an indirect message? A direct message is that this is a new world order.
One that has China as the dominant force. This jamboree of authoritarians, including the leaders of Iran.
I don't think when it's authoritarians you can really call it a jamboree, because a jamboree is a light-hearted and fun affair. Like, hey, who's rating? Hey, Tim Cast. Hey, if you're over here from Tim Pool, welcome, welcome, welcome. We're just talking about this. Do you think it's a display of authoritarian power, or is it a jamboree?
Including the leaders of Iran, Belarus, Myanmar and Zimbabwe.
Welcome to China.
Former Victorian Premier Dan Andrews given a warm personal greeting by the president, then given a front row in the Xi show.
Show me.
Why did he get a circle, that guy? Like, because this is Australian news. Look at that. We've got this guy in the front row. Australia, I love that country, man. I love you Australians, you beautiful people. I suppose the primary question you have to ask yourself is, do you consider Chinese expansionism and an alliance between China, Russia and Iran to be a real threat? Are they? I've spoke to some people in the military. They said, yeah, no, it's a real thing. Like China, you can't just ignore stuff like that. I was like, oh, I don't know. I'm too busy thinking about my actual life.
消弭战争. Humanity again
has to choose between peace and war.
US President Donald Trump speaking before the event, at first saying he was nonplussed by the event.
But China needs us much more than we need them.
His mood changing, perhaps after seeing the footage. Posting on Truth Social, please give my regards to Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un as you conspire against the United States of America.
Well, let's have a look at that message in full. The big question to be answered is whether or not President Xi of China will mention the massive amount of support and blood that the United States of America gave to China in order to help it secure its freedom from a very unfriendly foreign invader. Many Americans died in China's quest for victory and glory. I hope that they are rightfully honoured and remembered for their bravery and sacrifice. May President Xi and the wonderful people of China have a great and lasting day of celebration. Please give my warmest regards to Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un as you conspire against the United States of America. Do you consider it to be a conspiracy? Let me know in the comments and chat if you feel threatened. And again, I suppose with an America First mandate under which Trump has ascended to power, how concerned are you? Do you still consider the might of America's military, which I feel like is significantly larger and more potent than China's? Does that not provide you with some comfort? And how do you feel about domestic issues right now and power more broadly? Let's have a look at what else we have on this story. The good news is that over the weekend there were pretty extensive rumours that Donald Trump weren't even alive no more, and he responded to that lustily.
And they got it. Peter?
President Trump, something completely different, but about a big viral social media trend over the weekend. How did you find out over the weekend that
I like that guy. He's one of my favourite people that I ever see at press conferences, him. He's just, in the Biden administration, he was very sarcastic. I'm thinking, by the way, of getting a pass myself and going and doing that stuff. You know, you can do it. We can do it. They have people in, like from independent media.
I feel like we could get in there.
We could go in there. We could just turn up there. I'd be just like, no, I don't want to deal with no bon mots or sarcastic comments, but I don't know what I would dress up in. I'm thinking of getting a quilted bodysuit, like a very soft fabric, padded motorcycle or Avengers style suit, so that I feel like I can get up without feeling like I've left bed. Do you not know that you are enough? Do you not know that you don't need to continually strive, that you are loved, that you are forgiven, that you embrace? You don't need to spend all your time desperately toiling in fretfulness. Don't you feel like you're under sort of continual pressure? Aren't you continually being stimulated into a state of mad anxiety? Whilst geopolitical matters might be beyond the scope of my imagination, is the simple truth of it. I don't know what, if China and Russia are going to form an imperial alliance and take over the world, but that's not something I can contend with. But when it comes to domestic matters of free speech, particularly in my country, I got an opinion, baby. The creator of Father Ted, Graham Linehan, some of you might have seen recently, was on Joe Rogan, was arrested when he returned from, I guess, appearing on Joe Rogan. Maybe he's doing other stuff in your country. Here is that story, and I reckon it's significant. I'm just responding to a post that says, or laughing at a post, put a shirt on, you fuck nig fairy. I mean, that person's so angry. I think they meant fucking fairy, but they're so sort of angry that they sort of muddled up like the ing. Like, put a shirt, you fuck nig fairy. It's actually better. Let's have a look at this Graham Linehan story. Here it is, sort of a still on it. Father Ted creator Graham Linehan arrested at Heathrow Airport for tweeting that women should punch trans men in the balls if they're in female-only spaces. Oh, and there he is in the hospital. God love him. And, I didn't see this. What did he say? Elon Musk, please state, what the fuck has the UK become? This is totalitarianism, utterly deplorable. And let's see what Owen Jones says. I think that Graham Linehan is beyond awful. We should not be arresting people for hateful things they say online. It's not a solution to these problems. Trusting an increasingly authoritarian state to be the arbiter of acceptable speech is a major mistake. Now, you might not know the ins and outs of British political commentary, but Owen Jones is of the left. You will be more familiar with the views of J.K. Rowling and Elon Musk. But what I reckon might be emerging is a sort of horseshoe alliance where people from the left and right are so cynical about the agenda and motives of centralised government authority that there could be new ways of running a whole country, like the United Kingdom specifically. Let me know what you think about that in the comments and chat, and let me know if you've noticed that really more and more people are cynical about government authority, particularly in countries like the UK and Ireland and European countries that seem to be legitimising care and concern and compassion to justify authoritarianism and control. Let's have a look at what Megyn Kelly said. Shame on Great Britain for what it's doing to Graham Linehan. What an embarrassment. Europe does not value free speech, and there are many in our own country who want to be just like them. You know, there's you know, in Germany there's a sort of a far-right party, not that one, a new one, and those guys are sort of like dropping like flies. They keep all dying. Have you seen this story? We're getting to that. Where is that? Oh, gosh, we've got so much stuff here. It's what they called the UFD. AFD, yeah. The old AFD. Okay, I'll get into that in a moment when I find it, because I've stepped out of chronological order here. Robot UFC fighters. Zoran Mamdani is going down the gym. South Park talks about Trump's penis. Finland removed swastikas from Air Force flags. They shouldn't have had those on there. Pennsylvania woman horrified to find massive swastika in her basement. J.D. Vance, Americans, Christian Lee Strobel, aha, there we go. 6, yeah, this is what I want to talk about. These AFD candidates dying in extraordinary numbers. This is happening in Germany right now. Check this out. 6 candidates for Germany's AFD die before the election. What is happening in Europe? And in their attempts to protect us from fascism, have these compassionate, supposedly liberal or at least centre-left governments become outrageously authoritarian and punitive? Seems to be reaching a kind of fever pitch in my country, at least. Let me see what's going on there right now. Oh yeah, see, like in my country, we've talked about this in some depth and at some length. There are flag protests all over the UK that are centred around migration. Tommy Robinson's going to be on our show on Thursday. We've got a clip of that I'll show you in a minute. But here's Keir Starmer saying he wouldn't want to live near a migrant hotel. Keir Starmer is the Prime Minister of the UK currently, and he's an interesting little fella here he is.
How would you feel if it was a hotel at the end of your road? If your daughter was having to walk past one of these hotels every day, how would that make you feel?
I completely get it. I mean, local people, by and large, do not want these hotels in their towns, in their place, and nor do I.
There you go. Here's Tommy Robinson, who is on our show tomorrow, talking about exactly that.
So a young migrant comes. He comes to the UK. He says he's 15. He's put into a school in Bournemouth. You have to look this case up. He's put into school in Bournemouth, right? He causes problems at school. He sexually harasses girls at school. When he gets to 19, he stabs a young Royal Marine in the heart and murders him, yeah, in the town centre. At that point, he's arrested from the murder. Guess what? They find out he's 25, which means when he was brought into the school, he was actually 21. Guess what they then find out? He shot 2 people dead in Serbia with an AK-47. So he shot 2 people dead. He comes through our border. He gets put in the classroom next to one of our daughters. He sexually harasses them, and then he murders a young Englishman. Now, if that was a one-off, it's not. Do you know how many cases? Do you know when the riots went on, Russell, in the UK after Stockport? Do you know they went on in Hull? What they don't tell you is a Muslim migrant left a hotel in Hull and he stabbed an old age British pensioner to death. Of course, people outside the hotel. What they don't tell you is in Yarmouth, they left where people were protesting, a migrant left the hotel and raped a woman. What they don't tell you in Tamworth, Mohammed left the hotel and raped a woman. So when people are protesting outside, rather than have the legitimate discussion about why people are angry, what they did is blanketed it, politicised it as far right. So and that might have worked. They weaponised the judiciary, weaponised the media, weaponised the courts, imprisoned innocent people for words, for all their social media posts. That buried it for a limited time. What you're seeing now is it's rising up again. It's not going to go away. And it's not going to go away because people see.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting conversation. You can watch that tomorrow. I enjoyed it. There's a lot of disruption and what I would call fragmentation in the UK right now, but also a new emergent unity and sense of national identity. Is it a conversation where I tried to, as best as I could, address the subtitle that guy, says Central Scrutinizer. You better subtitle that cockney. I can't understand a word that guy's saying. But there's, I've tried to focus as much as I can on how you can have true unity and not focus solely on issues like migration when the primary problem would seem to be the manipulation and weaponization of the media and judiciary, which Tommy Robinson mentioned in that answer there. So join us for that tomorrow. It's interesting, actually, because I feel like, I suppose all of us occupy certain points and places and spaces in this struggle. When I see, you know, the alliances between China and Russia, I feel like, oh man, that's kind of beyond my comprehension and beyond the scope of my reflection. And then when I hear people focusing on migration, for example, I feel, no, that's too myopic. Where I tend to focus is the manipulation and management of systems of information and control, the alliance between state and media. And that's probably because I've got experience in that, because I've worked in media a lot and I understand how you can manipulate and control entire populations by controlling access to information, highlighting certain information, amplifying information, controlling and limiting other types of information. Let me know what you think about that in the comments and chat. Here's your very own Charlie Kirk in the Oxford Union, that famous institution of education and deep state power, some would argue. Seems to go there quite a lot, Charlie Kirk. Whenever I see him, he's in the hallowed halls of Oxford, quibbling about nationalism. Let's have a look.
If you dislike the West, and if you hate the West's values, if you think the West is evil fundamentally and deserves to be destroyed, then anything Donald Trump does basically short of surrender will be too far for you. If I was visiting this school 100 years ago, speaking in support of an American president, I think we would at least have some broad agreement on what a country's leader should be trying to do. But we don't anymore. I don't think it's because America's changed. In fact, I think it's because Britain has changed. From my perspective, Britain is one of the greatest countries in the history of the world. You are the country of Shakespeare, the steam engine, and Adam Smith. You defeated Napoleon. You destroyed the slave trade. You stood up to Hitler. My country, America, became great as it is because of what we inherited from you, from Britain. When I hear the slogan, "Make America Great Again," I'm also hearing, quote, "Return America to its British roots." Great Britain has everything in the world to be proud of. But when I look at Britain today, I see a country where the ruling elites are in a race to abandon the very values, the values that made them so great in the first place. I wish I could blame this all on labor, all on the left, but I can't. This country just had its 14th uninterrupted year of so-called conservative rule. And what did they conserve exactly? Well, they didn't conserve the ancient British rights to freedom of speech. In Britain today, 30 people a day are arrested for offensive posts on social media, according to The Telegraph.
Now, this was some time before Graham Linehan's arrest. We'll be covering that in more detail on Russell Brand Unpacked. Wherever you're watching this, please join us on Rumble Premium. If you've come over from Mug Club or from Tim Pool, welcome here. And I suppose let's take this opportunity to say that my country, the United Kingdom, appears to be in a state of crisis. Migration protests or anti-migration protests are reaching fever pitch. There's a sort of sense of despair about the creep of authoritarianism and control and no trust in the leadership. How long can Britain be sustained under these conditions? Join us tomorrow for our interview with Tommy Robinson. He talks about a protest that's being held on September the 13th that you might be interested in, as well as many of his documentaries that expose the nature of British power and the way that media operates, corroborates the interests of the powerful, sometimes even concocting false stories. He had some amazing insights into that, let me tell you. Another area where I feel somewhat qualified to comment is the nature of insidious dark Hollywood power. The theologian, apologist and Christian writer Lee Strobel, I think that's saying his name correctly, appeared on Tucker Carlson and made precisely that claim, that Hollywood is under the control of Luciferian forces. When I heard that, I cast my mind back to my own time living there in Los Angeles. I thought about some of the events I attended, some of the people that I encountered. Let's get into that in a moment. But first of all, let's have a look at Lee Strobel and Tucker Carlson talking about demonic power in Hollywood.
The biggest problem in our culture is to deny that there is a demonic realm, pretend like there isn't.
So what are the hallmarks of it then?
Well, I think some things you mentioned, we see the manifestations of it in ways that defy natural explanations. And I think that's probably the best way of
disorder, distraction, chaos, violence, hate, division. Maybe.
And you think if Satan were smart, which he is, would he go around the country and around the world trying to possess or bother average everyday people? Well, you know what? Much more efficient to go to Hollywood and to influence a bunch of people there who are very influential in, let's say, the entertainment industry. And let's say he encourages them to create films and television shows that are funny and that are creative and that are fun. But there's an underlying message to them that there's a normalization of immoral activity that makes it normal. Because, you know, when we laugh, it opens us up to various possibilities. When we laugh, our defenses come down. So I'm thinking of a wonderful, funny TV show like Friends. Remember Friends, the TV show? It was on TV for years. Very popular show.
Only American who never saw it, but yeah.
But underlying that is a very ugly sexual ethic that normalizes multiple sexual partners and that sort of thing. The kind of thing that Satan would love to inculcate into American culture. And you know what? I think it's much more efficient for Satan to influence movie makers and TV makers in Hollywood to create products that feed us stuff that, without us even realizing it, open us up to the occult, open us up to immoral activity, normalize it in ways that, well, if Monica can do that on Friends, I can certainly have sex on the first date with this guy I meet.
Where do you get your values from? How do you conduct your life? Where do you find pleasure? Where do you find respite? And how do you orient your reality? And it's interesting, isn't it, to think of a cultural artifact like Friends, which, as Lee Strobel says, is pretty innocuous, anodyne, and seemingly delightful. But if you review it as a piece of propaganda, as an emblem of how one might live, it does, I suppose, advocate for ongoing casual sex, dating, objectification. And I suppose that power is about the normalization of your own agenda, so that it doesn't even really seem peculiar that you may live that way. If you would sit down for an evening and watch an episode of Friends, during the commercial breaks you'd be invited to drink sugary beverages and eat carbohydrate-laden food and dense sugars and seed oils. So visually you're being stimulated in a particular way, and then ultimately biologically and nutritionally you get stimulated in a particular way. Ultimately this system wants to mask the fact that it is a cult. That's why I kind of guess it's hard for me to get up in arms and excited about Xi and Putin meeting, because the idea of a clash between near-peer superpowers seems abstract to me and less imminent. What I believe we are contending with is spiritual warfare, where the normalization of sets of values that are detrimental for us at core is taking place right now. When it says in scripture that authority in this world belongs to the evil one, it's easy to pass over and not reflect on. But what would that look like if, instead of the culture's values being normalized, which is how most of us grew up and how most of us live, you look to scripture for your guidance and your orientation through reality? Then you might start to think, well, how should my sexuality be expressed? How do I treat other people? How might I live? What are my priorities and my goals? What's the point of being alive? Having told us that there is no God, that good and evil don't exist, that rationalism can maneuver you mentally into any position that you want to be in, that do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law, the culture sort of sets about, by kind of osmosis, setting the agenda of your life. Think about the time when Friends was a popular show. A lot of people's lives were aspirational in that direction. They're sort of unthinkingly normalized. In fact, I remember now, like, I think Baudrillard writing that, you know, people emulate things like that they've seen on the TV to the point where you don't even know that you're not participating organically in reality. Think about some bachelorette party you see somewhere. Is it an indigenous and natural event, or is it the emulation and imitation of 1,000 bachelorette parties that have gone before it? If you need archetypes and guidance and principles by which to live your life, where are you going to draw them from? The culture or from God?
So the way I, as a non-theological, ignorant person, try and figure out whether something's good or bad, because it is an open question very often. It's like, is that good or bad? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Are the people doing it at peace and joyful, happy?
Yeah.
Are they tormented?
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people in Hollywood, a lot of people I like, actually. Not too many happy people.
Yeah.
Some really tormented people.
It's true.
For real.
Yeah.
String of wrecked relationships, kids who hate them, trans kids, drug problems. Like, there's so much of that.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a fair way to assess?
I think because it is logical that if Satan were to try to influence a culture in a mass way, that is a logical way that he would do it. And, oh, guess what? By the way, look at all the dysfunction we see in that community. It does seem to match up.
So if evil is acting through you, you are harmed too.
Generally, I would say yes. You're going to be someone who's trying to influence others. You may not realize the full
but it
reasons
destroys
why.
you.
Yeah, it does destroy you.
It certainly seems to.
Yeah, I think so. Who would, God created us so we could have a relationship with him. So he taught us how we can live in a way that maximizes who we are. And when we stray from that in egregious ways, as many people have and do, there are implications for us.
Yeah, man. When I think about my own little time back there in Hollywood and the values that are promoted, think of some of the subsequent scandals that have occurred. The Diddy parties, I know he's been found innocent, but there's certainly no question that there's a lot of hedonism and decadence and, exploitation, even if it was non-criminal in nation going on. Harvey Weinstein, whilst I recognise that he is disputing those charges and even the criminal process by which he has been jailed, it certainly seems to indicate that institutionalized sexual exploitation exists within those circles. It's extraordinary, actually, because as long as you can get people to focus on their sexuality and pleasure and self, I think it makes all of us malleable. And while in extreme cases you might find out about psyops and Epstein Island and the compromise of many famous and powerful individuals through sexualized blackmail, perhaps across the whole culture, all of us are being invited to participate in shameful acts. The epidemic of pornography. Well, I don't know what your relationship is with pornography. I can't go near that stuff. I can't be involved with masturbation. I can't be involved in looking at sort of gorgeous people frolicking on Instagram. I can't start pulling at those threads. I mean those threads of pornography. I don't mean my own genitalia, because I know where it leads. Fortunately, I've gorged on the icky treasures and pleasures of Hollywood hedonism and decadence, and I've seen firsthand that world. I've turned up at parties and seen everybody there, famous and powerful, not participated in any of that. What were them things? Freak-offs. Yeah, I've never been no freak-offs, but I can tell you that even if you don't participate in the concentrated component of sexual corruption, in a more diffuse way, it permeates entire cultures. Our culture has been permeated by it. The normalization of sexual pleasure, the sexualization of everyone and everything, every product, every individual. It has a pretty corrosive effect on all of us, I would say. But that's just what I think. Why don't you let me know what you think in the comments and chat. If you're watching us on YouTube, we're out of here now. Here's a quick message from one of our partners. I'll see you in a moment. Alio Capital. Get it now. The world has become increasingly divided because of you. Politically, socially, and economically. But many of these divisions stem from a deeper misunderstanding of how money, markets, and policy actually work. Wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be nice? If there was an investment app that was designed by people who understand a macro perspective and how global events affect your finances. And now you can have that power in the palm of your dick. Hand. That's hand, isn't it? Is that how could I get confused? With the Alio Capital app powered by Altitude AI, which identifies shifts in inflation interest rates, and global risk, then adapts portfolios in real time. Alio is designed for hands-on or hands-off investors. Macro investing for people who want to understand the big picture. Investing is confusing. Get the Alio app to make it all simple. You want money, but why should you work for it like some stinking slave? Get the Alio app and watch the money flood in, baby. Download their app to help you make yourself a few bobbins. Why not? You deserve it. What you gonna do? Just wait for death? Go to the App Store or Google Play or text my name Russell to 511. That's ALLIO, capital text RUSSELL to 511 511. Download the Alio app or text Russell to 511 511 today. Investing involves risks. Everything involves risks. Everything, isn't it? Life's risky. What are you going to do? Avoid risk? You'll pay a high price for that. That in itself is a risk. It's a paradox. You can't get out of it. Including the potential of loss of principal. What? My principles? Well, I knew this would happen one day. Past performance does not guarantee your results. See terms and conditions. Tax fees may apply. This is a paid advertisement for Alio Capital, baby. In case you thought it was me reading Shakespeare, that was an ad. That's pretty good. I was gripped by that. So actually watching that in near awe of that performance. Get that product. Get that app. We met those